So now we are in the Jenkins dashboard page. So you can see various options available. So on the right hand side we have the logout option and the user information, and here you can see all the notifications here. So what the notification says is this building on the built-in node can be a security issue. So you should consider setting up distributed builds. So distributed builds can be set up if you have multiple agents attached to this master. Basically this is the controller node or the built-in node. So this should not be in many cases should not be used for running any sort of jobs. So going forward we'll also see how to set up distributed builds by setting up a master slave kind of architecture. And in this page, so if I go back to the main page, you can see directly you can create a job by clicking on create a job hyperlink over here, and then you can also set up the agents directly from here. But we'll also see how to do them in using various other options. So there is a search button over here which can help you in searching various options and jobs. And if you go to this new item, so you can see various types of jobs supported. So we have the freestyle type of jobs and we have pipeline kind of jobs, and at the same time you can create various folders for various projects. Let's say you have various teams working on various projects like dev team, test team. So you can also create various folders for them and give those folder specific credentials and all those configurations related only to those projects. So that kind of demos also we are going to see in the future videos. And we also have multi-branch pipelines where the Jenkins is going to scan for all the Git branches which has the Jenkins file in it. So we have a dedicated session on multi-branch pipelines. So these are all the various job types supported. And if you install various plugins, so if that plugin supports another type of job type, so those kind of jobs also will appear here in the new item. So I'll just go back to the starting page, and then if you click on the people over here, so these are all the list of users that are currently included with the Jenkins installation. So basically you have the admin, so you can also add more users in the manage Jenkins options. And coming to the next option, which is build history, so this is the history of your complete job builds. And the next option would be managing Jenkins. So we'll go to manage Jenkins. So we'll talk about managing Jenkins a little later. And if you see this my views, basically you can create various views of your jobs. Let's say you have 100 jobs running inside your Jenkins, but you are responsible only for 5 jobs. So you can create a view in such a way that you can see overview of only those 5 jobs where you are working. So those kind of views can also be created. So we'll also see about creation of views later. And then we have the build executor status here. So basically what are build executor statuses are, they will depend on number of virtual CPUs your instance is having. So basically for T2 medium we have 2 virtual CPUs that are 2 vCPUs. So these 2 vCPUs are acting like through 2 separate threads running your jobs. Basically you can set up 2 parallel jobs using 2 executors. So currently we don't have any jobs running, so both these executors are idle. So let's say that you are using 4 vCPUs machine. So in that case you can increase the build executors to 4. And also there are nothing in the build queue. That means so you don't have any jobs that are currently waiting for the executor to become free. So let's say that these executors, both of them are busy in executing certain jobs, and if any third job is initiated, so that third job goes and stays inside the build queue, and then whenever an executor becomes free, so the executor can run that job in the queue. And coming to this managing Jenkins, so this is the core administration menu inside the Jenkins. So you'll have a lot of options inside it, so we have to learn it a little seriously. And the first option would be system configuration. So inside system configuration you have 4 sub menus over here, and first one is the configure system. So basically this configure system is to configure your complete Jenkins. So if I just click on it, so you'll see various options like what is the home directory. So this will be automatically detected, so depending upon the installation and how did you set up your Jenkins home, so that directory will be given here. So you can type some system message if you want. And currently the number of executors are 2 because I only have 2 vCPUs. So if you want you can add some labels for this particular node. So basically this is built-in node. So if you wanted to add labels such as master, so you can just type that label over here and use this node as much as possible, or only build jobs with label expressions matching this node. That means if any job required to be executed only in this particular node, so you can select the other option, or otherwise you can use this node as much as possible. And we have quiet period. So basically whenever you trigger a job, basically Jenkins wait for 5 seconds before starting that job. So you can always put it to 0, so that whenever a job is triggered, immediately Jenkins can run that job. And we have SCM checkout retry count. Basically it is 0. So if you're trying to check out a course from the GitHub or any source code repositories, so the retry count is set to 0. That means it will fail. So if the first time if it is not able to clone the repository. And this is the Jenkins URL. Basically this will be automatically populated for the first time, but in case if you are not using dynamic IPs, or if you don't have, sorry, in case if you're not using any static IP like the elastic IP, or if you don't have any DNS, so this IP keeps changing. So whenever you restart your Jenkins instance, this IP changes. So you should make sure that you update it here. So it won't affect your overall functionality of Jenkins, but in case if you are sending any email notifications, so Jenkins make sure that it will also send the Jenkins URL. So if you are accessing Jenkins on a different IP, and if you don't update it here, so Jenkins is going to send the wrong URL in the email notifications. And coming to the other global properties, so we have these environment variables. So we'll come back to these environment variables when we install Maven, and then you can also explore the rest of this stuff. So we have the timestamper. So it will show you how the timestamp should look like. So if you don't want to have the seconds, you can just remove it here. So basically this is a bold tag, which is basically an HTML tag to print timestamp in bold. And also the elapsed time, so this is also in the seconds format. And if you see, we have GitHub servers. So if you want to add some servers, so you can add these servers here. And this is the shell executable. So if you want to set the default shell executable, you have to set it here. And we have to configure the email notifications. Let's say you have SMTP server running internal to your organization, so those SMTP server settings goes here. So this is basically the URL to your SMTP server, or the host, and the port number. So the rest of the configurations you should explore. And we have basically two types of emails. One is the simple email, and one is the extended email service. So basically you can also configure the body of the content, so the content of the email which you are going to send through these extended email notifications. Otherwise you can use this simple email notification, which basically sends some default messages, so you don't have so many options to configure. So this is about the system configurations. So let's say if you are adding some Nexus plugins or SonarQube plugins, so those server details also should be mentioned here. So once you install those plugins, so the options will also appear here. So even this page will be dynamically populated along with the installation of plugins. So I'll go back again. So go back to the manage Jenkins. So the next option will be global tool configuration. So as the name itself indicates, it is where you configure locations of various tools. So as the tools in the sense, what are the JDK installations you have inside your Jenkins servers? So what are the Maven installations? What are the Gradle installations? So this is where you configure them. So let's say if you have multiple versions of JDK, so those JDK installations goes here. At the same time, you can also add your Maven installations. So if I just click on add Maven here, and if I wanted to directly install Maven 3, so I can install directly from this Jenkins. Or if I already have Maven installed, so I can uncheck this option, but give the Maven home location which is currently available in the instance. Or else if you want Jenkins to directly install that for you, so you should click on install, select appropriate version, and give it a proper name so that you will identify it in your jobs. So again, we'll come back to this Maven and JDK installation a little later. So now this is about global tool configurations, where you add configurations for the various tools. So now I'll again go back to the manage Jenkins. So we have the plugins over here. So this is where you install various plugins. So you can have to click on this available and then search for any of the plugins that you wanted to install. So for time being, I'm just installing Maven. So what I have to do is I have to just search for Maven, and then select this Maven. So if you want to also install other the plugins, you can select that plugin over here, and then you have to click on install without restart. So once you do it, so Jenkins is going to pull from the central plugins repository and it is going to install. So usually it takes from few seconds to few minutes to complete install the plugins. So once these are done, so I can just go to manage plugins option again, and in the installed tab you can see all the installed ones. You can also uninstall them directly from this option here. So let's say if you wanted to install plugins manually, that means you already have the plugin downloaded from the central plugin repository and you wanted to upload that plugin, because basically this Jenkins installation doesn't have internet access, so you wanted to upload a plugin manually. So what I can do is I can just upload the plugin from this option over here. So just for time being, what I'll do is I'll just go to the plugins repository, so which is plugins dot, I think it is jenkins.com or jenkins.io maybe. Yeah, so plugins.jenkins.io. So what I'll do, I'll just search for a plugin known as some JSON. So if it is there, so in most cases if it is not, they will search for the another plugin. So this is some plugin build steps from JSON. So these are all the available plugins. So you can just use this generic webhook trigger plugin. So this is the the advanced plugin which we are going to see later. So let's just keep it, let's just not install it now. So I'll just take any plugin over here, and then in order to download this plugin, you have to go to the releases page, click on any version. So basically plugins comes with the .hpi extension. So once you click on any version, so you can see that the .hpi file will be there. So I'm not going to install it now. So what you can do is once you have the HPI file, you can just click on this choose options over here, and then you can upload that HPI file. And then if you are running any proxy server, and if you want to Jenkins to talk through the proxy to the internet, so you have to configure your proxy configuration here. Now I'll go to this manage Jenkins again. So this is where you manage all your plugins, and this is where you manage your nodes. That means if you wanted to add some external permanent agents or the temporary agents, which we call them as dynamic agents, so all those configurations goes here. Basically we have only one node, which is built-in node where Jenkins is currently running. If you want to add some nodes, you have to click on new node and we have to add them. So we have the dedicated sections where we add Linux, Windows and Docker containers as build agents. So for now I'm going to go to manage Jenkins. So the next one is global security. So this comes under the security. So if you click on this global security, you can control who can access this Jenkins installation, who can access your jobs, create new jobs, view jobs, etc. So by default, so we have two different plugins. So one is the matrix based security and one is the project based matrix security. So you can also extend this authorization through other plugins like role based strategy. So that is, I think it's RBAC plugin. So by default, so authentication is enabled, and then the security realm, so Jenkins is using its own database because we don't have any LDAP configured. But if you want to use the Unix users group or database, so in which Jenkins is currently running, so you have to check this option. And for authorization, so logged in users can currently do anything. That means if you are logged in, you can do anything in this Jenkins. And coming to this Jenkins agents, so basically when external agents wants to connect to the Jenkins, so there should be an inbound TCP port. So that port we have to configure it here. But again, this we are going to see when we add external agents to Jenkins. And coming to this API token, so enable API token usage statistics. So again, we'll come back to this later. So these are all the available options inside the security. So if you just click on this matrix based security, so you can see you can fine tune the access to this Jenkins. That means the authenticated users. So basically if you want them to only read, you have to check this option, or else if you're creating a new user. So let's say I'm creating a new user. So let's say I'm creating a new user known as dev. So this dev user, so basically it is not found. So what you have to do is first you have to add a new user, then only it can be added here. So we'll see how to add new users. So basically I'll go to this dashboard again, leaving everything here, and then in the manage Jenkins, so you can see we have manage users here. So here I'm going to create a user. So this user is known as a dev. So password also I'm going to input for him, and the name is dev, email is dev@gmail.com. So this is the user with the name dev, so he is added. So now if I go to the manage Jenkins and go to the global security and select the matrix based security, so here I can add the user which is already added to the Jenkins database. So click on dev. So now see here, you don't have the error. So now this dev user, what he has to do, so we have the various options. So these are the overall options. These are just for credentials, these are for agents, jobs, run, view, SCM. So what I will do is, so if you want to give overall read permission, so you have to give it this, or if you want him to restrict to only jobs read, so you can give it to read, or if you want to give him to replay a job, you have to give it this. So these are various options. So overall, if you want to give it this user the administrator permissions, so you have to click on this. Okay, so for now I'm just moving back to logged in users can do anything, and click on save. So now global security is done. So managing credentials, so this is where we have the credentials. So basically there will be two types of credentials. One is globally scoped to Jenkins, but if you are creating various folders inside Jenkins, so you can also restrict credentials to that folder. So we call it as a local scope to that folder. So if you want to see the credentials that are scoped to the Jenkins, so I'll just click on this Jenkins store and global credentials. So for now I don't have any credentials. So for credentials, so we'll be adding credentials for GitHub, credentials for the Nexus, credentials for the SonarQube. So whatever the tasks that require connecting to the remote servers or remote applications through username or password or username or SSH keys, so we'll configure them as the credentials so that we will not expose them to the public. So that is where credentials comes into the picture. So we'll also see how to add credentials a little later. And then the credentials provider, so this is not mandatory for now. And coming to the system information, so you'll get all the information about the system, like where exactly your Jenkins war file is residing, the file encoding, okay, so Java class path, and you will also see the Jenkins home directory, basic OS architecture in which Jenkins is running, the OS name, OS version. So the complete information about the Jenkins installation can be found from here. So now I'll go back, and now we have the system log, load statistics, and about Jenkins. So you can explore various options. And then we have an option called reload configuration from disk. So let's say you have manually logged into the Jenkins CLI, basically in the system where your Jenkins is running, and you modified some changes in the configuration through terminal. And now if you want Jenkins to load those configurations, so you have to come to this option and reload your configurations. So again, we'll also see when we try to create our first job, then we'll come back to this reload configuration from disk. And then we have the Jenkins CLI. Basically, if you want to remote control this Jenkins, so what we will do is basically we download a jar file that connects to this Jenkins master, and in that terminal, so we are going to use various commands like to start a build, stop a build, add credentials, delete credentials. So this is like an API calls to Jenkins installation. And then we have something known as script console. So using the script console, you can run various Groovy scripts to directly talk to your Jenkins. Let's say you wanted to add hundreds of users in one go. So through a simple Groovy script, you can do that complete job, so without touching any of these options over here. And at the end, in the last option, so we have the prepare for shutdown. So when we click this prepare for shutdown, so all the jobs will be stops executing new builds. So the system will see that no new jobs will be triggered, and it will wait till all the existing jobs are finished. So that is preparing for the shutdown. So we have a lot of other options also in manage Jenkins, so we'll see whenever those are needed in our either freestyle jobs or the pipeline jobs. And coming to the other views, so if I go back to the dashboard, so here I can use new view. So I'll be creating different views depending upon the requirement. So I'll also show you how to do this when we have at least 1 or 2 jobs running in the Jenkins installation. So that's it for this Jenkins dashboard overview. So in the next video, we'll see how to install Maven and then integrate it with Jenkins and run a sample freestyle job to find the Maven version.
That's it for this video, guys. If you like our video, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and joining our Facebook group. The links are given in the description below. You can also scan the QR codes being displayed in this video. And for any training requirements, you can join our Telegram channel where we post regular updates on our upcoming trainings. You can also WhatsApp us on the number being shown here. You can also drop us an email for any kind of training inquiries. Thank you.